Castle Crashers has a lot of levels. Some have enemies, others have zero. Some levels are boss fights, and others are a slightly dangerous walk. So in today's video, I will be ranking every Castle Crashers level from worst to best. But first, what actually determines a level? Well, for this video, we are only going to be ranking levels that can be selected on the map. That means sub-levels will not be counted as their own level. Looking at the map, there are a total of 49 selectable levels. Here we can remove 6 of them for being stores. We can also remove a further 5 for being arenas. And finally, we can remove the blacksmith level and the insane mode selection level since they don't count. This leaves us with 36 playable levels to rank from. But before that, let's hear a word from today's sponsor, Manscaped. This year is about being fresh, and that means you too. Enter the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra Electric Trimmer. This grooming powerhouse features 2 interchangeable skin-safe blade heads. You got the trimmer blade for precision, followed by the foil blade for that close clean cut. One of my favourite features is this LED spotlight, as it allows me to shave completely in the dark. What? I like the surprise. The Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra features a travel lock, is USB-C chargeable, and an easy to read battery indicator. Did I mention it's also waterproof? The performance package also comes with the Weed Whacker 2.0, removing those itchy ear and nose hairs. And just for good measure, the Weed Whacker 2.0 is also waterproof. There's also the Crop Soother and Crop Preserver for those who struggle with razor burns or chafing. So start the new year fresh by heading over to manscaped.com and using my promo code RECORDUS for 20% off, plus free international shipping, plus 2 free gifts. So can I take my glove out the shower now? No? Okay, I'll wait. And the worst level in Castle Crashers is the desert. So to no one's surprise, the desert is dead last and easily the worst level in all of Castle Crashers. Putting bias aside, desert is a difficult level, but not the kind of difficult that motivates you to get better and keep trying. No, it's the difficult that makes you want to take Seahorse and put him in a blender. Okay, maybe I'm exaggerating. The desert's enemies are annoying, however. You have antlions that constantly grab you, royal guards who throw bombs, and then there's the scarabs. Hitting a scarab 4 times will cause them to jump away, making them temporarily invincible. The scarabs also have a different attack that sees them underground and also become invincible. Combine this with like the 20 other scarabs and you're in for a terrible time. The desert is also a super long level, which isn't necessarily bad, but doesn't help when all of the enemies make you want to blend Seahorse and... the Frost King. A boss so bad, I guarantee most of you still call him the Ice King. So Ice Castle is a very cool level, with some great level design, which is why it sucks that it's so bad to play. Sliding around when trying to hit the boss is infuriating, especially when the boss has 50,000 health on insane mode, and can teleport around the ice like every 2 seconds. It's annoying because the Frost King isn't even a hard boss. On insane mode, the damage this boss does is close to nothing, making the whole fight a massive inconvenience rather than a challenge. But if you do somehow manage to die, then you don't even spawn back at the boss fight. You have to run and slide across a bunch of ice, cross this ice bridge, and then fight some Eskimos while slipping on ice. Now the Frost King's health is getting reduced when the Painter Boss Paradise DLC comes out, but as it stands right now, the Ice Castle is not a fun level to play. Flooded Temple is a very forgettable level. It doesn't help that you have to enter the level just to be told you have to leave and go somewhere else in order to progress. But when you finally return to Flooded Temple, you're greeted with some of the most annoying enemies in the game, whilst also having very slow movement speed. Yeah, so the only enemies in this level are fishmen who are not fun to fight. Similar to the scarabs, The fishmen will jump and become invincible after every 4 hits, only being able to take damage again once they land. The slowed movement speed is also annoying and makes me wish there was some way to nullify it. Everybody hates the Khorne boss. The only reason I ranked it above the Frost King is because of a glitch which makes the boss fight kind of satisfying. But if this glitch was to go away, then for sure the Khorne boss will be ranked lower than Flooded Temple and Ice Castle. Why is this a level? No, seriously, like there's nothing here. Wizard Castle Takeoff is similar to Cyclops Bridge since it has no enemies to fight. Where it differs, however, is just how awesome it is. You walk through the mass destruction left behind by the evil wizard. You gaze upon the final 4 bosses of the game before bursting through the sky. Comparing this to Cyclops Bridge, and yeah, you can see why this one's better. Despite everything I have just mentioned about Wizard Castle Takeoff, I would still say Dock is the better level, mainly because Castle Takeoff triggers my motion sickness like crazy. For beginners, Dock serves the purpose of guiding players, telling them what they need to collect before coming back to the level. For advanced players, Dock allows them to completely skip this until they need to come here, which I greatly appreciate. Plus the dock has seagulls, so it's automatically goated. Desert Chase is unfortunate because as a level, it's actually not that bad. You get a camel which can spit at enemies. The level also concludes with a camel race, which is just amazing. Which is why it's so unfortunate that Desert Chase happens so soon after the desert, which is the last place you want to be. Cyclops Cave isn't a terrible level. It has a lot of healing throughout and great visual storytelling. I also like the mix of light and heavyweight juggling. Where Cyclops Cave falls flat is the choice of enemies, with the slime and coneheads being 2 of the most annoying enemies to fight against. Abandoned Mill is a unique level, as it's the only chase sequence in the whole game. In this level, you have to avoid obstacles by either jumping or moving to prevent taking damage. Although Abandoned Mill is unique, it's still not an amazing level. It can get quite repetitive on repeat playthroughs and offers little to no threat, and the level itself feels like it goes on for a little too long. River Rapids is a bit of a nothing level. Normally, the river section of Castle Crashers is great, but that's only when combined with the Catfish boss fight, which is a separate level according to the map. So when you remove the Catfish, you're left with a lot of waiting around. There's also some questionable hitboxes with some of the enemies. Sandcastle Interior is that one level where you think to yourself, these beefies seem different, before getting hit with the nastiest ground slam you've ever seen. Yeah, so Sandcastle Interior is great. It's really good for beefy testing since it's the only level that immediately opens up with a beefy. It also has some unique beefies in the form of the Royal Guards, who are slightly larger and have a unique attack. The level design is great, having a secret tunnel that you can trap enemies behind and a large shovel for shovel strats. Now I'm ranking this lower than it probably deserves due to the fact that it's a really short level and shares a very similar design to the Desert and Desert Chase, which at this point has become pretty stale. Parade is a fun level. Waiting for enemies to jump on the carriage before getting knocked off is satisfying to do. But this, however, also causes there to be a lot of waiting around and offers little to no challenge at all. The boss fight isn't any better since it only has one attack that can be blocked. Plus if you jump and constantly attack the boss, it literally cannot do anything to stop you. Alien Ship is a unique level, as instead of throwing a handful of enemies at you, Alien Ship instead swarms you with, well, aliens. The trade-off here is that every alien is one-shot, so you can take them out pretty easily. The level also concludes with an escape sequence, giving you 1 minute to rush to the escape pods before the whole UFO explodes. Failing to reach the escape pods will result in a death, making you restart the level. Despite how unique Alien Ship is, it's not a very difficult level. The aliens are still one-shot even on insane mode, and the escape timer remains the same. Pirate Ship is a short but sweet level, so short in fact that it only has 2 waves of enemies. However, I feel like this is what makes Pirate Ship a good level, as it doesn't overstay its welcome. The pirate ninjas have some really cool magic, even if they do spam that one annoying move, and the music here is goated. Pirate Ship does its job perfectly, getting you from point A to B, something that hasn't worked well in the past. For a level called Flowery Fields, you'd expect it to be, well, a flowery field, and that is what you're initially greeted with, until you realise that most of this level is a Conehead bombing ground. Yeah, so the strongest part of this level is the Flowery Field part, being the only part of the game that features the bee enemy and the beekeepers, who are both fun and balanced to fight. The background and general feel of this level is great, until you get catapulted into one of the most annoying parts of the whole game. Yeah, so the second half of Flowery Fields is 3 waves of Coneheads in an area that restricts your vertical movement. On insane mode, the Grey Knights that accompany you might as well not exist, since they get insta-killed. So the only real chance you have here is juggling the enemies the second they spawn in. Otherwise, you're in for a bad time. Taking my number 20 spot is the final battle, which is crazy to say. As the name suggests, the final battle is the last fight in the whole game. In other media, the final battle is the peak experience. All the battles and building up has led to this moment, only for you to be greeted with a boss that does this. Twice. It's especially sour when the boss you just defeated was amazing. But with that being said, the fight's not so bad. If this was not the final battle, then I'd honestly rank it higher. The multiple variations of the fight plus the fake out death is really interesting for a boss fight, but as a final battle, it's a bit underwhelming. Like Flowery Fields, I feel like Sandcastle Exterior suffers in one half and excels in the other. The first half of this level is frustrating, with massive pillars that block your vision and enemies that spam their tornado magic. Further in the level, you fight royal guards that also spam their magic. There's also this annoying curve in the level that will block your projectiles, which makes this whole thing even more infuriating. But what saves this level for me is the finale, where you play a game of beach volleyball. Now I know not everyone likes this, but I love the idea that the enemies see this unstoppable force heading their way and decide to just hash it out over a game of volleyball. Now this is a controversial pick, but please let me explain. So Wizard Castle Interior is the level that contains the Painter, Undead Cyclops, and Necromancer boss fights. Arguably the best fights in the whole game. So why did I rank it this low? Well, similar to a lot of previous levels, Wizard Castle Interior is split into 2 distinct parts. The first half of the level contains 3 waves of 4 cult minions. Cult minions are an enemy that have 100% elemental resistance, but they can be medium juggled, so they are not too bad. The problem I have with this level is the checkpoint system, since it makes 0 sense. So to get to the boss fights, you must defeat all waves of the cult minions, to which you can load into a new level containing the different boss rooms. In order to progress here, you must defeat each boss in order. This is what unlocks the next boss's room. However, if you were to die on any of these boss fights, you would load back at the start of the cult minions. But fighting through the cult minions again Once you load into the boss rooms, your progress saves here. What makes this even more infuriating is the fact that the previous level on the map literally has 0 enemies, yet that gets a whole checkpoint. Now if this jank checkpoint system didn't exist, then for sure this level would be a top 5. Castle Keep is a confusing level, since it wants to be a store and a progression level at the same time. So Castle Keep is the first time we're introduced to a store, and for the early game, this one is great, offering the second cheapest health potions in the whole game. However, unlike other stores in the game, this one has enemies you need to fight. Normally, stores are unlocked alongside levels when you beat certain areas. These stores will have 0 enemies and only serve to restock the player with consumables and other goodies. But with Castle Keep, the store is a progression level, as you cannot progress the game until you have beaten the enemies and left through the gate. This gets even weirder when you try to revisit the level, as sometimes you have to refight enemies in order to use the store, and other times you don't. But jank aside, this level introduces the first purchasable healing potions in the game, whilst also being the second cheapest. Despite being full of coneheads, Cyclops Fortress is pretty good. Mostly containing heavyweight enemies, this level will really test your ability to heavy juggle. Cyclops Fortress also includes a unique mini-boss Conehead, who does not appear anywhere else in the game. There's also a single fire demon, which acts as a nice teaser to what you'll be fighting next, unless you're weird and do Industrial Castle first. The level eventually concludes with the Cyclops boss, which is actually a great fight. The Cyclops only has 2 attacks, but makes up for it with some punishable damage. There's also a phase 2, which drastically increases the speed of all of his attacks. Finally concluding with one of the most gruesome deaths in the whole game. But hey, a Terminator reference. Yet another controversial pick, but I personally love Full Moon. The worst part of this level is the RNG boulder, as that can definitely affect my mood. But assuming the RNG is nice, I don't think this level is as bad as everyone says. For the first half of the level, using beefy manipulation makes this section a breeze. Granted, this is more of a glitch than a strategy, but still, even if it was removed, fighting these beefies with range wouldn't be too bad. The second half of this level relies solely on ladder strat. Ladder strat utilizes the ladders in order to gather all of the enemies. This makes it much easier to damage all the stove faces, as they are the only enemies in the game who cannot be juggled. Plus, I also find ladder strat to be really satisfying and fun to perform, and is definitely one of the reasons it's ranked this high for me. Medusa's Lair is almost a perfect level, only if it wasn't for these annoying fishmen. Yeah, so I like almost everything about Medusa's Lair. Snakies are a challenging enemy to fight, the scenery is great, and the final boss is one of the best in the game. But like I already mentioned, the fishmen just ruin it completely for me. They slow down the pace of the whole level and feel really awkward to fight alongside the snakies. I've also experienced a lot of glitches with this level, so there's that too. I do not understand the hate for Industrial Castle, as I feel like it's challenging but fair. I mean, enemies hit like a truck, but they're also easy to juggle. The Beefy Brute acts as a challenging mini-boss, and the final boss is okay. Yeah, so the Industrial Machine is unique, being the only boss fight in the game that requires multiple moving parts to be destroyed. Which sounds good on paper, but ends up being an awkward fight that's not very satisfying. Now if I was to use my personal bias, then Pee-Pee Shallow's Cave would be number 1, but I'm trying to avoid that. Pee-Pee Shallow's Cave is a short but sweet level, starting out with 2 waves of cave slimes which admittedly are not the best. Cave slimes have a reputation of being one of the worst enemies in Castle Crashers, and I'm inclined to agree. It's not because they're hard or anything, they're instead just really annoying to fight. But where this level really shines is with Pipistrello, who is my favourite boss in the whole game. Is he challenging? No. Is he complex? No. Is he extremely broken? Yes. Yes, he is. Pipistrello is one of, if not the most glitchy boss in the whole game. Simply stepping to one side will completely break him. Putting my bias aside, I believe that most people like Pipistrello as he's not an offensive boss fight. Catfish is a great boss fight, and that's all there really is to this level. Fighting a boss in the water is fun, and the whole damage reduction mechanic is pretty nice. And yeah, there's not much else to say here as I'll end up rehashing my boss tier list. So before we get into the top 10, don't forget to subscribe if you're liking the video. Starting my top 10 levels in Castle Crashers is Wedding Crash, which is surprising considering every enemy in this level is a conehead. However, I feel like the bomb spam is slightly toned down for Wedding Crash. Except from the Sky Bomb, I still don't know what's up with that. Beginning the level by literally crashing into the wedding is great. The coneheads are all light juggles, so they're not the worst to fight. Wedding Crash also provides constant healing from start to finish, making it a lot less punishing than other levels. But where Wedding Crash really shines is the boss. So the Groom is one of 3 regular sized bosses in the whole game, and is actually a challenge to fight. With a wide range of attacks that evolve as the boss's health lowers, the Groom offers a great challenge for all players alike. I really love the randomness of the Groom as he can open up with any attack when fighting, each attack requiring a different action from the player, making the Groom a fun replayable boss. The music in this level is also great, and I love how it changes depending on if the Groom is playing the organ. Snow World is another level that is almost perfect. Setting wise, Snow World is one of my favourites. I love snow and anything winter related, which you'll find a lot of in Snow World. The music is also one of my favourites in the game and really helps set the mood for the whole level. The enemies are also great here, with some Eskimos hiding behind the ice whilst constantly throwing snowballs, whereas other Eskimos get close to melee. My only gripe with Snow World is the ice barriers, as they take a ridiculous amount of hits to break, which is even worse when you realise there's about 15 of them in this level. I know this is a small petty issue, but for me, it really slows down the pacing of Snow World. The complete opposite of Snow World, Lava World is an amazing level. Now Lava World gets a lot of hate, which I fully understand. The enemies do a lot of damage, the level is very long, and dying at any point will restart you from the beginning. But following the trend of this list, I really like challenging content. I feel that the fire demons are punishing but fair. Their magic and attacks are easy to avoid, and as long as you know how to medium juggle, they are really not that bad. Lava World is also generous with its healing, having 2 chests containing meat and also some unique food which can only be found in this level. Lava World is also the only level in the whole game that contains 2 boss fights. The first being the volcano boss, which admittedly sucks, but the second boss is pretty good. Overall, I feel like Lava World is overhated for being too hard, but at the same time, is really rewarding for players who learn the necessary strats and like a challenging level. Home Castle is the very first level in Castle Crashers, and for a first level, it is great. Home Castle begins in the barracks, where you get a guaranteed free healing potion on your first playthrough. Leaving the barracks introduces the big bad of the game, and sets up the story you'll be following throughout. The enemies are easy and simple, which you want for a first level. Where I feel Home Castle excels is in the theme and atmosphere. Leaving the barracks to see all your fellow soldiers bloodied and dismembered, villagers running for their lives, and buildings on fire as the barbarians attack is just perfect. The music here is also amazing, really setting the tone and pushing you to fight back. Finally, barbarians are one of, if not my favourite enemies in the whole game. Their design is simple yet effective, and a perfect enemy to open the game on. Tallgrass Fields is a great level. The enemies are unique and fair, the level design is top tier, and Tallgrass Fields produces some of the best weapons and animal orbs in the whole game. This level is simply fun to play through, mainly due to the easy enemies and boss fight, which I know contradicts everything I've been saying so far about challenging content, but it's just sometimes fun to beat up the boss. The only complaints I can see people say is that the boss is too easy and maybe the annoying rain, but I don't think it's a big deal. I think even the Behemoth knew Tallgrass Fields was great, since they added a secret area that can only be accessed whilst beefy, a hidden wall that requires bombs, and an animal orb that requires the horn, causing the player to return at least 2 and maybe 3 separate times. Thieves Forest is a controversial pick. I feel like most of the community dislikes this level, but I personally love it. Loading into the level and you're greeted with a thief hiding in a bush, followed by a pooping owl. But speaking of the pooping animals, they are unfortunately the worst part of this level, since they play 3 forced cutscenes that you cannot skip. However, I feel like it's unfair to judge them as they are, since they are an unfortunate product of their time. Back in 2008, this was peak comedy, at least for child me. But in 2024, these 3 cutscenes are just a massive inconvenience. But getting past that, the rest of this level is great. The thieves match the atmosphere of the whole level, the music is upbeat, and the final boss is good too. I feel like Troll Mother gets a little too much hate because she's difficult. This is once again where experience and strategy determines how much you enjoy something. As for a new player, I can totally understand why you hate the Troll Mother. She's spongy, doesn't attack, and spams trolls. It gets even worse on Insane Mode as she will eventually start running away when getting hit. But for the more experienced players, Troll Mother is great. Being one of the best bosses to practice juggling, Troll Mother is a satisfying and rewarding fight. The XP you gain in this one fight alone is unmatched, and if you're lucky enough to get all the trolls in a juggle, you get blessed with this sound. The predecessor to Thieves Forest, Forest Entrance is one of my favourite levels in the whole game, simply due to the fact that it's carried by the music. Jumper is my favourite track in the whole game. Every time I hear this song, I get transported back to 2008, when I had no stress, no worries, and I'm just sitting there, playing Castle Crashers. Anyway, the level itself produces a lot as well. We get our first rideable creature, as well as fighting our first beefy. This is also where most players get their first animal orb, making this a memorable level. So despite being so short, Forest Entrance does a lot more than people realise. Barbarian Boss is my number 3 pick for the best level in Castle Crashers, since Barbarian Boss is one of the most iconic fights in the whole game. I mean, the Castle Crashers demo literally ends mid-fight with a guy. The Barbarian Boss is easily one of the most memorable bosses in the whole game. But looking closer at the fight, the Barbarian Boss is perfect. It has multiple attacks that require different actions from the player, enemies jumping in, and the boss gaining a new attack as his health gets lower. Not only that, but the Barbarian Boss is also very functional, as he serves as one of the best money farms in the whole game, meaning you'll probably be back to fight him over and over. Out of all my controversial picks, I imagine this is the worst. Marsh is the definition of either loving or hating something, and as you could guess, I love the marsh. Beginning the level, you're greeted with this. These skeletons are actually unique, since they do the most damage out of every regular enemy, which is definitely one way to begin a long level. But moving further ahead, we are greeted to a graveyard, which can actually determine how hard this section can be. Normally, there will be 4 skeletons that spawn. Defeating all of the enemies will let you progress as normal. However, destroying a gravestone can actually spawn more skeletons, which will need to be defeated before moving on. This makes you have to think about where you fight, instead of just juggling all over the screen. Immediately after defeating the hardest hitting enemies in the game, you're greeted to more skeletons, plus 4 beefies. But if you do manage to defeat all the enemies, there's actually a pretty useful trick that you can do. If you walk back to the previous level and then re-enter, you will cause a glitch that prevents these skeletons from spawning again, unintentionally making Marsh a little easier for people who struggle here. The next few waves consist of snakies, which I believe to be a great enemy to fight. They are medium juggles, so you cannot cheese them too bad, and their magic is extremely punishing. Further ahead, we once again see the Marsh rewarding the player for being careful. By continuing the level as normal and passing these houses, you will cause a snakey to pop out. This ends up triggering more snakies to spawn alongside the guaranteed bunch. If you stealthily walk behind the houses, these extra snakies will not spawn. Immediately after the houses, you're forced to fight the Troll Mother. This Troll Mother functions the exact same as the one we saw in Thieves Forest, but now with 4 extra snakies. This Troll Mother has significantly less health, and doesn't have a boss health bar. The level concludes with more waves of snakies, but you also get a beefy civilian on your side, which is the only friendly beefy in the whole game. Overall, Marsh is amazing, but there is one part of this level that I don't like, and that's the music. I mean, it's not bad or anything, it's just pretty plain and also forgettable. And the best level in all of Castle Crashers, in my opinion, is Barbarian War. This right here is Castle Crashers. The music, the enemies, the atmosphere. This is the most iconic level in the whole game. After seeing the massacre that was Home Castle, you emerge into the Barbarian War, fighting alongside your fellow Grey Knights as you push the barbarians back. The background of this level is brutal, seeing the endless waves of knights and barbarians clash, whilst arrows rain through the smog-covered air. Taking a close look at the background, you see a vehicle ploughing through the forces. This turns out to be the War Machine, Castle Crashers' first boss. Now I love this visual storytelling. Having part of the level's background come to life and actually fight you really helps immerse you into this already immersive level. But looking at the War Machine boss fight, and it's alright. But moving past the War Machine, we eventually infiltrate the Barbarian Stronghold, which will lead to the Barbarian boss fight. Now Barbarian War is my favourite level. The music is amazing, the visual storytelling and atmosphere is unmatched, and the enemies are some of the best. It may not be challenging like other levels or have the best boss fights, but in terms of the most memorable and iconic levels, this right here is the one. And that is my ranking for every single Castle Crashers level. Do you disagree with Marsh being number 2? Do you think the desert is a good level? Let me know in the comments down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next video. Goodbye.